All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on the huge, pretty complex world of food service. We're going to look at the four main systems that get food from a kitchen to your plate, whether you're at a hospital, a school, or even a fancy restaurant. Let's get into it.
I mean, seriously, have you ever thought about it? It all comes down to a very deliberate, strategic choice of system. The answer to how these massive operations actually work is all about understanding the fundamental blueprints they follow. The scale might seem staggering, but the logic behind it all is surprisingly clear once you see it.
And here it is. This is basically the blueprint. Every single system we're about to talk about follows some version of this flow. It starts with planning the menu, then goes through purchasing, receiving, storing, prepping, cooking, and finally serving. Now, some systems add extra steps like cooling and reheating, and that's where things get really interesting.
At the very heart of all four systems is this one core concept: the food processing continuum. A manager has to make a choice. Are we going to start from absolute scratch with totally raw ingredients, or are we buying foods that are already partially or even fully cooked? This single choice right here dictates pretty much everything else. So based on where you land on that continuum, four major systems have emerged. We're going to break down each one. You've got the traditional, conventional, the forward-thinking, ready, prepared, the massive-scale commissary, and the super-efficient assembly serve. Let's kick things off with the two that happen on site. So our first comparison is a showdown between two systems where the kitchen is in the very same building where the food is served. But as you're about to see, they operate on completely different philosophies, especially when it comes to time. First up, we've got the conventional system. This is probably what you picture when you think of a classic restaurant kitchen, right? Ingredients come in, they get prepped and cooked, and then they're held, either hot or cold, but for a very, very short time before being served right to the customer. It's the classic model. The real defining feature here is just how tightly linked production and service are. By cooking so close to serving time, chefs get incredible control over the final quality. Plus, they can be super flexible with the menu. So the crucial point to remember is that this system is all about immediate freshness and total control. Now, let's look at the other on-site player, the ready-prepared system. As you can see from this diagram, the workflow is totally different. The food production still happens on site, but it is completely disconnected from the service time. The kitchen cooks the food, then immediately chills or freezes it, ready to be reheated and served hours or even days later.
So how do they pull this off? Well, it's made possible by two key techniques. With cook-chill, the food is rapidly cooled to just above freezing, and it has to happen within 90 minutes. Cook-freeze takes it a step further, freezing the food solid in that same 90-minute window, which gives it a much longer shelf life. This separation of cooking from serving is an absolute game changer for managing labor.
Okay, so let's put them head to head. The conventional system, it gives you amazing quality control, but it creates a really stressful, uneven workload that demands highly skilled chefs for those crazy peak meal times. The ready-prepared system, on the other hand, smooths out that workload and cuts down labor costs, but, and this is a big but, it requires a huge investment in specialized cooling equipment, and you have to be super careful to avoid food safety issues. It's a classic trade-off, flexibility versus stability. Okay, so we've covered the on-site systems. But what if the kitchen isn't even in the same building? Let's dive into the off-site operations, which trade location for either massive scale or just radical simplicity. This is the commissary system, and it is built for scale. Think of a big school district or an airline. You've got one giant central kitchen doing all the purchasing and all the production. Then the finished food gets transported, hot, chilled, or frozen, to a bunch of smaller locations or satellite units where it's served. This is the perfect way to get consistency across a ton of different outlets. And finally, we get to the most extreme model of all, assembly/serve. I mean, just look at this diagram. The food production box is completely gone. This system takes that food processing continuum and pushes it all the way to the complete end. The facility just buys fully prepared foods and only needs to store, assemble, portion, heat, and serve them. Yeah, the source material calls this the kitchenless kitchen. And honestly, that's the perfect description. It fundamentally changes what a food service operation even is. There's no cooking from raw ingredients on site at all. Zero. So if we compare these two, the commissary system gives you lower food costs because you can buy in bulk, and it guarantees that the quality is consistent across all your locations. The downside? You have to deal with complex transportation logistics and a really high initial investment.
The assembly/serve model, on the other hand, offers huge labor savings and needs very little space or equipment. But your menu is limited to whatever your suppliers are selling, and it can generate a lot of packaging waste.
So, with these four totally different options on the table, how does a manager actually choose one? It's not just a random guess, it's a strategic decision that's all about balancing several really critical factors.
And you know what? It all comes right back to that food processing continuum we talked about at the very beginning. The first question you have to ask is, what form is our food going to be in when we buy it? Are we buying baskets of fresh vegetables and whole chickens, or are we buying pre-chopped frozen veggies and pre-cooked chicken breasts? That one decision creates a ripple effect that touches everything else. And here are the other big pieces of the puzzle. What's your budget for food, for labor, for that big initial equipment investment? How big is your kitchen? What's the skill level of the staff you can find? Do you even have space for giant freezers? And probably most importantly, what is the main goal of your whole operation? Is it all about quality or cost or speed? The right system is the one that best lines up with the answers to all of these questions. So now you have the blueprint. You can see these systems everywhere you look. The next time you eat in a cafeteria, a hospital, or even just a restaurant, take a look around. Based on the menu, the setup, the food itself, can you figure out which of these four kitchens is really running the show? It's a fascinating puzzle, and it's happening all around us.